In the uncertain times of the 1960s and 70s, when Americans were plagued by war, Watergate, and stagflation, liberal policies reigned. Almost overnight, Republicans usurped the crown, and Americans saw an ascendancy of conservatism, led by a former actor intent on restoring America's traditional values. Reagan believed that FDR strayed from the Founding Fathers' vision to instead increase welfare programs to gain political footing. Reagan, and soon George H.W. Bush, ushered in a new wave of conservatism of the 80s and early 90s. Reagan won the 1980 election in a landslide victory over the incumbent, Jimmy Carter. The pillars of Reagan's supply-side economics were tax cuts for the affluent, budget cuts for social programs, which included folding 57 social programs into 7 block grants, thereby eliminating funding requirements for each, and increased military spending. Reagan's campaign took advantage of media outlets and the simple fact that he was popular. The Reagan administration called for massive cuts in Medicaid, nutritional and mental health aid, and cut funding by 57% for low-income housing. 1 million people lost eligibility for food stamps as budgets were cut and requirements updated. Growing social costs and federal cuts created significant budget deficits. Still, Social Security and Medicare went largely unaffected by the mass downsizing of social programs, as these programs served higher-class voters. The election of 1984 saw an aging Ronald Reagan face off against Democrat Walter Mondale. In response to a question concerning age, Reagan famously said, "I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I will not exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience." Reagan took the W in part due to his likability. Democrats and several minority groups felt slighted, ignored, and unseen during Reagan's presidency. Issues such as abortion, women's rights, and gay rights, in light of the AIDS epidemic, went largely unacknowledged. Still, other issues such as prayer in school and the pro-life movement that Republicans fought for were tiptoed around in a cautiously careful avoidance, if you will. An infamous highlight of Bush 41's reign was his reneging on the promise of no new taxes. He did, however, implement the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, barring discrimination in the workplace, housing, and public accommodations. From 1980 to 1992, conservatism peaked. It was time once again for red and blue alike to decide who and what each stood for. The counter-revolution of the 80s and early 90s saw a significant shift in the structure of the welfare state.